I am a classic LA girl. I'm comfortable driving at high speeds and bumper-to-bumper traffic in a city where cars are the lifeblood of identity and survival. As the youngest kid and the only girl in my family, I drove through life on gifted cars, like Peter Pan, never wanting to grow up. I am an excellent driver, except when in the beginning, when I was 17, and I backed my mom's 1964 Lincoln Continental out of the driveway in our house in Beverly Hills, smack into the driver's side of my dad's Rover that was parked across the street. My line of vision was hampered by the squared-off back of this huge vehicle that I was too short to see over. So I ran into the house crying, banging on the bathroom door when my dad was getting out of the shower. I can still hear him telling me through the closed door, "That's okay, honey. As long as you weren't hurt, it's just a car." And then hearing him spitting out, "Son of a bitch." Yeah, when he thought I was out of earshot. My dad was a huge presence in my life, a weight-bearing beam supporting me until he died at 93 years old. I have his photo on the piano, taken at my law school graduation. There he is, proud lawyer dad, new lawyer daughter. My dad was born in Brooklyn to Jewish immigrant parents, and his father died when he was 16, leaving him with his mom, 3 brothers, and a candy store. He was a short, slightly pudgy man. His leg was crippled by a landmine in Belgium after fighting in the Battle of the Bulge in World War II. He was nearsighted, balding, and brilliant. He went to law school on the GI Bill and became a corporate lawyer, CEO of companies, and a real estate investor. And he was very generous with his money, and he cared deeply about the world. He even gave money to my causes, like abolition of the death penalty and immigrant rights. He supported my life, so I could work for basically shit money as a social justice lawyer. But to do that work, I needed a way to get around. My first car was a black 1967 Volvo that my middle brother gave me after he drove it into the ground, forgetting to ever change the oil. It died the next day. My second car was from my older brother's. It was his 1963 VW Bug that he offloaded when he went to the Navy. I named it Bozo. It was a surfer's ride, which was very odd because my brother never stepped foot on sand. But I took Bozo to Berkeley in 1971, and I drove it for a few years, me with a red bandana around my neck, underarm hair peeking out from my overalls, John Lennon glasses under a mass of curly hair, Bozo with half-smoked joints in the ashtray, chocolate chip cookie crumbs on the floor, and political flyers in the back seat. I filled the tank for $3.50 a week. And I took classes at a feminist auto workshop. But when the axles froze, I had to let Bozo go, much to my brother's regret. So my next car was a 1969 VW convertible Bug that my middle brother no longer needed when he moved to New York. I named it Dumbo, after a particularly fun acid trip, when I definitely saw the car flapping its big ears over the San Diego freeway on the way to Magic Mountain. So I left Dumbo with my parents when I took off for Latin America in 1974. When I returned a few years later, the car was nowhere to be found. "Where's my car?" I asked my dad. "Gone," he said. Apparently, my middle brother drove it when he was visiting from New York and totaled it. So my dad gave me a Honda, a white Civic he bought for one of his post-divorce girlfriends. I didn't mind. It seemed a step up from VW Bugs. I drove the Civic from Venice to the Burbank studios, where I worked as an assistant cartoon animator, a tweener, they used to call it. And the back seat was filled with scenes of Wonder Woman and Yogi Bear. And then in 1980, I got into law school at USC. Apparently, my mom told my now filthy rich middle brother, "Your sister's going to law school. I think you should buy her a typewriter." So one day, my brother called me and he said he needed to talk to me, which was not a good sign. We had a very intense relationship. So with some dread, I pushed the Civic up the hills to the house off Mulholland Drive where he lived. There were 2 brand new MGB convertibles in the driveway, one black, one canary yellow. I clucked with disgust at the conspicuous consumption that defined my brother's lifestyle, a sneer of righteous contempt on my lips. "Come here," he said, and he walked over to the yellow car, reached into the glove compartment, and handed me the registration that had my name on it. "Are you fucking kidding me?" I screamed. Well, he broke into his hyena-like laugh and was delighted at how he had so royally stuck it to me. So I was forced to drive the MGB to my classes at USC Law, parking next to the fancy cars of all the trust fund babies and the frat boys. But I filled the back seat with political flyers and put lefty bumper stickers on the back. I drove it downtown to my job at the public defender's office at the courts, the criminal courts. It was a really cool car, but it had a tendency to overheat, and it broke down quite a bit. Finally, the catalytic converter fell apart for one last time and shoots just chunks of it out of the tailpipe. After I was towed off the Santa Monica freeway one last time, I gave up. I sold it to an MG guy who had more patience and a lot more cash. So my dad gave me another Honda, a dark blue Prelude. He didn't want his soon-to-be divorced second wife to get in the divorce settlement. It was a little dull after my sporty adventure, and it had a wussy automatic transmission, but I really appreciated its reliable nature, and I thanked it often for never breaking down. And then in 1989, I took a leave of absence from the public defender's office and left the Prelude with my dad when I went to Europe. When I came home a year later, the Prelude was nowhere to be found. "Where's my car?" I asked my dad. "I gave it to Camille," he said, rather matter-of-factly. Camille was the daughter of his now divorced second wife. "But that was my car." "So what?" he said. "I'll get you another one." See, my dad considered cars and other properties in the family to be his to move around as he wished, like pieces on a chessboard, like a true socialist, giving to those in need and taking from those who split. So when I complained to my oldest brother about this, he said, "Well, if you don't want Dad to give your car away, then go buy one yourself." "Fine, I will." I was 40. It was time to grow up. My dad had already bought me a new Honda Accord, but I was adamant. I was a lawyer, after all. I wrote a check for $13,000, a good portion of my savings and the full price of the car. You see, my father always said that it's written in the Talmud to never pay interest on credit cards and always buy cars outright. So I handed my dad the check. With forceful indignation, a slight gulp, and hesitancy in my grip, I was hoping and, well, expecting that he wouldn't cash it, that he would accept this as a gesture of my maturity and rip it up. He didn't. He deposited it the same day to get the interest. Son of a bitch.